SharePoint is dead. That's what a friend told me earlier this year when I saw him in a store. We started catching up. Let me tell you this story about a previous organization that I worked at and kind of what led to him thinking SharePoint is dead. Let's get into it. So I was at Sam's Club earlier this year, maybe March, April timeframe, somewhere around there, getting some more packing supplies so that my family could move from North Carolina down here to Florida, where I'm at right now, in the old RV. And so I saw him in one of the aisles and said, hey, we started catching up and starting to, catch up on what happened in the last 10 years since the last time I saw him and what happened at the old organization that we worked at together. He's still there. And so he's, I started telling him what I'm doing, a ton of stuff with SharePoint and Copilot, and I'm a Microsoft MVP now, like just tons of stuff, the YouTube channel, like all of this stuff that I wouldn't have dreamed of doing 10 years ago. And he said, SharePoint, isn't SharePoint dead? He's like, SharePoint's dead, isn't it? I'm like, no, it's definitely not. So we started talking through that and to see, why he came to that conclusion. You see, back then, I was one of the SharePoint admins in this organization, and there was another one there as well. So just two of us, we took care of the on-prem SharePoint farm, and when I left, they were already starting to migrate to SharePoint Online. But I left for better opportunities and, better paycheck. And he did too at some point after I left. The problem was, no one picked up the reins. There was no handoff. There was no one cared to step up and be that SharePoint admin. Everyone was happy being in their, safe little sandbox. I'm sure people like that as well. They don't want to learn anything new. They just want to keep doing the thing that they know and just coast. And that's definitely not me. I've got to have that challenge. So one of the reasons I left, I needed that challenge. I needed, that next big step up, in leveraging more and more of the skills while I'm building new skills. So I'm standing there in the store talking to my friend Matt, and I start talking about all the things that SharePoint is still around for, not just the core SharePoint product itself, but OneDrive, which is powered by SharePoint. You can't have OneDrive without the SharePoint, the back end, really. But then there's also Teams. That's the largest example I can think of. If you're storing files in Teams, guess what? It's going to SharePoint. So you have a fraction of the functionality inside Teams if you didn't have that connection back to a SharePoint site somewhere. Then there's Microsoft Lists. It's just a skin on SharePoint, really. That's it. Just a different UI, little bit different functionality, but it's all powered by lists. Think about Viva Connections. That's tied to lists. Power Platform. What's the number one data source for Power Apps? It's SharePoint. How about Power Automate? How often do you have triggers that aren't based off of a SharePoint source, a list, a library, something like that? If you're going to be creating files, you're usually putting them in OneDrive or SharePoint. So again, SharePoint has become probably the most critical piece of Microsoft 365. If you could point to any critical piece, I would say most people would say SharePoint, because everything relies on that. Viva Engage, files are stored in SharePoint. There's Stream. What was it? Microsoft Stream, and then it was Stream on SharePoint, and then it got another rename, bless its heart, to Clipchamp, not to be confused with the software Clipchamp, which is definitely confusing to me. And then most recently, Copilot. Probably one of the biggest knowledge sources for Copilot is SharePoint. So again, everything kind of branches out from SharePoint. Everything touches it, and it touches everything else. So it's very much alive and well. And there's so many tools that people use every day that are powered by it, that leverage it, that rely on it for just basic functionality. And people don't even realize that. He certainly didn't realize it. And I mean, it's not any fault of his. His specialty in the organization was a different area. It was still within IT, but it wasn't the same type of role that I had back then. Back to what I think is the most important thing of what led to that him saying that viewpoint was the talent drain within that organization. I would say within every single organization, good talent is usually going to leave if it's not nurtured and cared for, right? I saw many people leaving and going to Red Hat, going to other organizations, going to, just quitting, don't even know where they ended up. A lot of people wanted to have better opportunities. The organization didn't provide it. And so essentially their skill set outgrew the organization. And so they had to go find a more fitting organization that wanted to leverage that skill set. That's certainly one of the big reasons why I left. And if I hadn't taken that leap after quite a while at the organization, I wouldn't be here where I am today, running a YouTube channel, Microsoft MVP, like just all the stuff that's going on in my life. I would have never, ever gotten here if I hadn't taken those chances, those leaps to go out and leave my safe space. Now, if you're enjoying this story so far and just kind of how it ties into, the fact of technology has to be taken care of and people have to work as a team to do these things, then click that like button, subscribe to this channel, because I make a ton of content on SharePoint and a lot more recently with Copilot agents. But back to this story, retention and knowledge transfer, like orgs have to hold on to their employees. They've got to recognize what they need. They have to work with them. They have to take care of the employees, just like the employees have to take care of SharePoint. If you're not taking care of the platform or the tool that you're responsible for, it's just going to go fall by the wayside. And we'll end up where we are in this story, where Matt's saying, well, no one's really using it anymore and no one's taking care of it. No one has taken care of it since both of you left. That's what he told me. And it makes perfect sense. We had some knowledge transfer going on. I think I was the original SharePoint admin at one point, or the only one, and then I brought up another person who wanted to take on that responsibility alongside me. So I skilled him up. I did lots of knowledge transfer, and we were doing SharePoint and Nintex workflows and Nintex forms and all that kind of stuff. All the things that you typically find within SharePoint and the different solutions that add on to it. But no one else came after us. No one wanted to take on that challenge. Everyone was happy being in their safe space. So no knowledge transfer could occur. No one wanted to step up. And so, again, SharePoint was basically abandoned and just left to rot, other than some of the use cases like Teams, where people probably didn't even know that it was powered by SharePoint. I'm not sure what M365 products they're using right now, but chances are they're using SharePoint a whole lot more than they think. But here's the big problem. Since no one's taking care of SharePoint, no one's doing governance on SharePoint. Governance is a major piece that has to come into play. Using things like Purview, using things like SharePoint Advanced Management, making sure that data is taken care of, it's secured, it's governed, lifecycle management happens so that you're not just making an ever-growing list of SharePoint sites. So governance falls by the wayside because people didn't step up. Leadership had a blind spot for SharePoint because they didn't recognize how much they did need SharePoint. And I'm not sure if they do now, but leadership has to recognize the value of their investments, whether it's M365 as a whole, Power Platform as a whole, or just individual pieces like SharePoint. Understanding the value of being able to store and collaborate on data and take care of it. Make sure that governance is applied. Make sure that it's being monitored. Make sure that there are admins who are taking care of that and supporting the users who probably still do want to use that platform. So all of that has to work together. Again, it's like a team effort. Users have to be supported. Governance has to happen. Leadership has to be invested and recognize the value. And they've got to make sure that when there is turnover within the organization, someone is identified who can take care of it and will take care of that. So what do you do if you're in an organization where SharePoint is dead? You have to start working backwards, get yourself out of that hole. You've got to recognize that there is that investment. You've got to begin looking at the landscape, all the sites that you've got, the data that's in there. You've got to start setting back up the governance or applying it and using it so that your data that's already there starts to be better secured with newer technology as Purview, as advances in Purview come out. The advances with Copilot, obviously, once you introduce Copilot, governance becomes critical. Data governance is so important as soon as AI has access to information because of how easily it can be found. You've got to identify who are going to be the SharePoint admins now. You've got to make sure they get skilled up as fast as well as possible. One of the reasons I made this channel to begin with is to help you, whether you're an end user, you're an admin, you're a developer, wherever you're at in that spectrum, that you've got resources to help you so that you can find answers quickly. That's one of my main goals for this channel, is just to pay it forward, because there were people there who helped me when I needed to help get up to the next level. And so it's just my duty to pay it forward. And I hope you are getting some value out of this, because there are so many SharePoint features that you could leverage and just solve a lot of business problems. Because you see, modern SharePoint Online is not the same beast that it was in the on-premise days of SharePoint 2010, 2013, 2016, 2019. It's not the same thing, because that was a lot more of a standalone system. Within Microsoft 365, everything is so well integrated. And as we went through in this video, so many things rely on SharePoint or leverage SharePoint that you can't decouple these things anymore. SharePoint is so critical. So I hope I've given you some ideas to think about how you can better take care of your SharePoint environment. How, maybe you've got some blind spots. Maybe governance could be a little bit better. Maybe knowledge transfer and passing that torch could be a little bit more seamless. And to make sure that if it's time for you to take that next step and leave an organization, you're leaving it in good hands, and the organization as a whole recognizes how critical SharePoint is to their success. So if you've gotten a lot of value, remember, click that like button and subscribe to this channel. I've got a lot of other valuable content for you. So to get started with my SharePoint playlist, just click or tap the screen, and I'll see you over there.